On June 2nd, 2025, I actually got Square Enix to answer a question about Final Fantasy XIV. That may not sound like a big deal, but getting an answer from the team sort of feels like when you speak to yourself in the mirror and your reflection says something back. You really don't expect it. So I was doom scrolling my way through Twitter, and the Final Fantasy XIV account just made a post announcing their next Duty Commence livestream. For those who don't know, the Duty Commence livestream is a short stream where community managers play group content in the game with, well, the community. And all is well and fine there. Okay then, Red J, what question did you have for them? Well, first off, hi, I'm Red J. I play Final Fantasy XIV a lot, and currently I'm on a journey to collect every mount in the game. But today, I wanted to address what may be one of the biggest questions in the Final Fantasy XIV community. How the heck do we actually give feedback on the game to the devs, especially in the Western audience? It often feels like we're providing feedback but don't know where it goes or if it's being heard by the development team. It feels like a large unknown, aka the proverbial black box. And the reason for it feeling this way is, well, the feedback transactions seem to be moving in a one-way direction. Right now, it feels like we get a few random questions answered every few or so months in a live letter, and that's really it. The frequency, type of questions, and answer quality sometimes just doesn't feel up to par. The challenge here is that when I state a concern, is it heard by the team? Does it fall by the wayside, or does it get filtered out even before reaching the Japanese team? Because surprise, surprise, I don't think their native language is English. So if I provide feedback, it has to go through translation and a community team. So I asked a question about this, which they actually answered. But one thing first. The truth is, it's currently post-Dawn Trail, and positive sentiment around the game is harder and harder to come by as you scroll through social media, which means now is probably the most important time to get feedback. Look, criticism is fine, because one, it means people care enough to state their opinion on the game, and two, they're often bringing up pain points about the game. Remember, identifying issues is half the battle in resolving them. A truly well and dead game is one that has no discourse around it. Well, you might ask, why not just ask during their live stream that's coming up? It's more of a community event rather than a feedback session, and more so focused on the content portion of the stream. They got their game faces on, you can't interrupt that. So, we know the community has a lot of feedback to give, including myself, so I replied to their tweet recently. Can the community team let the community know how to give feedback on the game? It seems as if players are screaming into a black hole with how one-way the communication channels feel. And they actually replied. So brace yourself, because this is how we give feedback. We get this question a lot live on Duty Commenced, but we'll list a few here, including but not limited to: share feedback on the official Final Fantasy XIV forums, share feedback on Final Fantasy or Final Fantasy Discussion Reddit. Share your feedback here on X. Feel free to tag us too. We often review Duty Commence chat, public Final Fantasy XIV centric discords, other social media channels as well, but having a slightly more permanent link to a comment/opinion makes it a bit easier to track long term. Hope this helps. Salute. And well, that seems pretty darn normal actually. In fact, this is a very normal approach for feedback. They review their social media channels and popular forums around the game. But let's read deeper into the value of this post. The value of this post lies in the confirmation that these channels are monitored. And so this does give a little bit of hope or copium that your post ranting about bunny hats is actually read and hopefully recorded down. But if you are still a skeptic, I wouldn't fault you, because again, the visibility of feedback being heard and incorporated isn't clear, to which I have feedback for this later. But moving on, within the same day, this Twitter post got picked up by none other than Reddit, where they referenced Square Enix's response to my reply, asking the question, what's one thing you'd want to tell the team? And after a week, it got 244 comments, and here are the top replies. Please, please, please conduct extensive playtests with American and European internet in the future. 189 upvotes. Unfortunately, this is one of the most common questions that get asked to the team. Do they know what it's like raiding on a connection outside of Japan? Because there are players who have to download third-party tools just so they don't miss their GCDs, and in some cases, just being able to double weave off global cooldowns. For the life of me, get that cross-DC party finder working, cause chaos is beyond dead. This was a foregone conclusion once data center travel was created, as it was natural for players to congregate to certain data centers known for certain activities, especially raiding. And because the West uses Party Finder rather than Duty Finder like Japan does for raiding, a cross-data center Party Finder would alleviate this pain point. Please open up more honest and transparent and consistent and meaningful communication. Please just communicate with non-Japanese players. Please. I feel like criticisms would be a bit more pointed and helpful if people were aware of what was happening or in progress or not on the table and why. This is what this video is about. The fact that this is the third most upvoted suggestion, a plea to just have better communication, is painful to have to iterate over and over. Yoshi P once said, "Do devs even play their own games?" in an interview. Well, do the FF devs know what it's like to try to give feedback to the team from their Western audience? In fact, communication is some of the most upvoted topics in this thread multiple times. I'll link this thread in the description if you want to read the rest of the posts, including this one. Don't listen to this subreddit, filled with nothing but jaded pissants who want to change the game into something less people would want to play. Thanks, Reddit. Now onto my feedback. I have two suggestions, one gameplay related and one feedback related. Both are actionable, low risk, and should have low implementation cost. I'll state the what, why, and how for each suggestion. First suggestion, for gameplay, Yoshi P stated that players should think of achievements as additional gameplay. This was brought up when they refreshed their achievement UI. I agree. Achievements can definitely be great motivators for players. My suggestion is to then give players more incentive around achievements by having their achievement score listed on their adventure plate. Currently, there's a lot of empty space on the plate, and by adding in your achievement score, which could be an optional element, gives an in-game visual way to represent your progress to other players. Maybe you can even highlight some achievements to display on your card. Hopefully this would be a low-cost effort, as you are really just displaying one variable, but who knows what's going on with your spaghetti. Next suggestion. For the feedback loop process, the goal of this suggestion is to solve issues stated earlier, which is to provide evidence that the Western player base is heard and encourage more feedback from the community. So trying to add a quick and easy improvement during the next live letter or even blog posts, add a simple statement like this. From our Western player base, here are the most common questions being asked, and here is how we are addressing them. By highlighting Western player base, it draws specific attention to this audience segment. And even if you cannot give specific answers to questions, the mere act of acknowledgement is important because it at least lets the audience know that they have been heard by Senpai and you are on their mind. And this shouldn't really be a tall ask, as it would be expected to already know this information. Next, during your live letters and lodestone posts, always sign off with a note emphasizing which channels feedback can be given through. To be honest, the Twitter reply I received is pretty good. It gives clear acknowledgement where the team actively seeks feedback from. We just need to see more of it. My dream would be for the Final Fantasy team, just as an example, to say, for our Western player base, we monitor the official forums, Reddit, Twitter, and more channels daily. Feedback is recorded and sent weekly to the team. For example, we're currently discussing Occult Crescence's initial reaction for review. This gives acknowledgement to the feedback process and highlights active work. I'm aware that Square Enix may have restrictive policies around how community managers or communications are handled, but process and product improvement are always continuous, especially for modern live service games. Now, that was my very low-cost suggestion. A larger scope suggestion would include player surveys, public timelines, Q&A sessions, but for now, one step at a time. Ultimately, I hope the player base knows where they can be heard and save people like me the need to ask the question of how do I get feedback through a Twitter reply. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoy Final Fantasy content, especially content that focuses on the full 14 experience, more than just rating, this is your channel. And if you have more suggestions for the game, leave a comment. It will be interesting to see what others think of as well. We beat it, but no Demi-Adma.